Hey guys, how's it going? I'm going to be going through a quick fall colors edit today using only Photoshop. So here's my raw image. I shot this photo, I think it was 3 years ago, and you can see my settings up here in the top right. Shot this at 14 millimeters, f10, ISO 640, and 1/1200th of a second. Now I didn't use a tripod for this shot. At the time I was just kind of scrambling around and didn't know exactly what composition I was going to be shooting, so I just wanted to maximize my time looking for compositions, and I came across this scene here. It's got the nice leading lines of the river, the nice light hitting this nice lenga tree here. I thought it was framed nicely with the lenga trees on both sides. Saratoy in the distance catching some nice light. This is taken about an hour after sunset, or I'm sorry, sunrise. And yeah, it's a raw file. Now I underexposed this. Definitely could have got some more details out of the shadows handheld. So kind of messed this one up when I shot it, but it still worked. And I just want to go through this shot and show you what we can do for this fall color edit. So I'm going to be opening this file in Photoshop. Edit in Photoshop. Like I said, I definitely could have shot this at a slower shutter speed to bring out some more shadow details. Definitely have a lot of room in the highlights to expose more. But let's see what we can do with this file. It's an old file, and yeah, we'll get started. So I have the photo here opened in Photoshop. I unlocked the layer, and I'm just going to go to Filter, Camera Raw. And this is going to be a completely Photoshop tutorial. I opened this in Camera Raw, pretty much exactly the same tools as Lightroom. I'm just going to go through some basic adjustments that I generally do to all of my images. There's this one you can see is very underexposed. I'm going to increase the shadows, decrease the highlights, and then balance this back out with a bump of exposure. And yeah, I'm just going to expose it to about what I would have seen at the moment. So that's looking pretty good. And what I will also do in Camera Raw is I will adjust the white balance. So after looking at this right now, it looks a bit warm to me. So generally every time I open an image in Camera Raw, when I start doing some color grading, I will take this temperature slider and just kind of go back and forth with it and try to find that spot where the colors have the most separation. So if I go back and forth, I want to find that spot where the blue and the orange are both present in the photo, and it's not kind of overpowering one another. So if I go like to say here, it looks like it's overpowering in blue, and here it's overpowering orange. So I just want to find that magic spot between the two where both colors are present and it's looking pretty balanced. I would say about right there. Now the tint for this shot, it doesn't look like it's going to need any tint, but you can move it back and forth and see if it improves the color. Here I'm just going to green and magenta. Now I don't think it does, so I'm just going to keep it how it is. Now I don't do any other adjustments really here in Camera Raw. What I will do is add some calibration, some color calibration. One trick for bringing out the colors in a fall color image is this blue primary slider. This slider really brings out the oranges, the yellows, the greens, and the blues as well. But you just have to be careful when you use it to not increase the blues too much. You see just that one click of the slider, what a difference that makes in the colors. And now I think we're looking really good, just that one tiny adjustment. Sometimes when you add the blue primary slider, you oversaturate the blues, but you can counter that by going to the color mixer and the saturation and then just taking them down the blues. In this case, I actually like the blues because it really contrasts the oranges nicely, and we got a nice color contrast between the blue and the orange going on. So I'm actually just going to increase the blues just a touch, and I think that looks really good. Now what else we can do here in the color mixer channel is the hue. So I'm just looking at the oranges and the yellows right now. I think the blues look pretty blue. They look good. Not too teal, not too purple. If I go to the blue hue slider, looking too purple, looking too magenta. So our blues are looking good. Sometimes we'll have to adjust those. But we can adjust our oranges, yellows, and reds. Just kind of go back and forth with these with fall colors. They can be just the slightest adjustment, and these can really make or break the image. Now we can also do this with color balance as an adjustment layer in Photoshop, but I'm just going to go through this really quick here, just see if it adds a little bit to it. The reds back and forth isn't really doing anything. The oranges back and forth, see, that's looking too yellow to me. That's looking too red. So if we go back to where we were, I think just a touch of red in that looks a little better. Now we just go back with our yellows back and forth, and that's looking too green, that's looking too orange. No, I think the yellows were perfect where they were. So I think that's looking pretty good. I'm going ahead and open that. First thing I'm going to do is duplicate the layer, Command J. So we have two layers here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open this back up in Camera Raw, this top layer, and I'm going to just add some luminance to the oranges, and that's going to really create some nice separation. Well, it's going to really pop our highlights out there. Just a little bit of luminance, and maybe try the yellows as well. Just giving some pop there to the foreground. If we take it down, just a little bit of pop. That's looking pretty good. Maybe take down the blacks just a touch. They're looking a little bit dark. It's looking good. Okay, so I think we're looking really good at the moment. What we can do is I would like to add some light coming from this side of the image where the light is actually coming from, some directional light. So what we can do is we can hold down Option and we can click Create New Layer right here on the bottom right hand corner. Create New Layer, that's going to open up this box, and we can click Soft Light, and then we can click this Fill with Soft Light Natural Color. That's going to open up a 50% gray layer, and we can dodge some light onto this layer. So what we do is we click on this color adjustment over here on the left. We click on that, and then we can select the color in the scene that we want to paint in. Now we really want to paint in a color that represents sun haze. So I'm going to go here to orange. If there was some sun haze in the scene, I could click on that. Maybe you want to add like a color, like the same color orange as this tree, but we want it to be bright, so we click up here on the left here. That's looking a little bit too orange, maybe just a little bit redder. No, just a little bit more yellow actually. I think right there, this new box is what we're going to be painting in, so that looks good. I'm hit OK. And now what we're going to do is with a brush, I hit B for brush, and then I'm going to make sure we're using a soft brush. We have a nice soft brush. Hit enter, opacity at 100, and with a low flow, we'll paint it in at 8%. And now we can just kind of paint in on this right hand corner just a couple clicks. So we're just going to click once, twice, 3 times. Just kind of click here. I'm just clicking softly. Just clicking softly. Okay, that looks good. Now with a little bit higher flow, I'm going to make the brush smaller and just hit the outside here of the image, just so it's painting on there. We really don't want to paint too much in front of our branches because that wouldn't look really realistic. So I'm just going to go in here and paint kind of away from the branches. Okay, just a few clicks, maybe one on Torre. Looks good. Now we can click this on and off to see the difference here. Now it's just looking a little bit too hazy on our actual branches, so I'm going to use the eraser tool with a soft eraser, hit enter, and with a little bit higher of a flow, say 30%, enter, and just kind of paint that haze off of our branch because that doesn't really look realistic. We want that haze to be beyond the branch in the distance to create that haze. So I'm just going to go ahead. Now we are using a soft brush, so we want to be careful, but we don't have to be too careful here. I'm going to use a little bit less of a flow. Take it off that. I'm just kind of clicking and dragging, painting this off this brush here, painting it off this twig here, and a little bit off these, off here. Okay, just clicking here. Alright, that's looking good. We can turn that on and off. I think that looks really good. Now I think we're looking pretty good overall. I want to kind of shape this light a little bit more. What I can do is I'm going to stamp up, Shift Option Command E to create a merge visible layer. And now I'm going to add a brightness contrast layer. And I'm going to darken this down just a little bit. Now I'm just going to kind of paint in, B for brush, and paint in with the low flow where we want those highlights to come back. And this is just going to kind of help shape the image as a final adjustment. Just kind of shape that light back in. It just kind of adds like a little vignette. But it's like a custom vignette. They can really shape the light. I really want all the haze back on this side of the image, and I'm just kind of painting that image back. I want the emphasis on the mountain in the distance. So I'm just going to kind of circle that, just painting that back. The river I want. This tree, the highlights on this tree I'm painting back. The foreground I'm painting a little. Now if we just click that brightness contrast layer on and off, we can see what that just did. And that just kind of shaped the light a little bit. Added a little bit of darkness to our shadows. And yeah, just gave it a little bit more of a mood. Now looking at this image, we can Shift Option Command E, stamp up again, and we just want to make sure there's no dust spots anywhere. So now we're going to be using the spot removal tool here, and I just want to go make sure that I don't see any dust spots here in my sky. You know what, now that looking at it up close, I'm going to definitely need to add some noise reduction here. So why don't I open this back up in Camera Raw. Go down to Optic Details, add some noise reduction, zoom in on that. That's looking pretty good. You don't want to add too much. It might be overkill. About right there. And I'm going to sharpen this with a high pass filter here. So I think we're looking good. Just want to make sure we check, don't make any dust spots. Looks good. Now to add a high pass sharpening filter here, I can do Shift Option Command E, stamp up again, and I can add this to a filter. Go to Other, High Pass, and I usually do around 4 or 5, hit OK. And if it's too much, change it to soft light. And then if it's too much sharpening, looks like it is a bit too much, we're going to just dial that down with the opacity to around 50%. So that looks pretty good. I think that our image looks good. It's popping. We got the colors. We've got some nice separation in our orange and our greens and all of our tones. Now just looking at the thing overall again, I'm going to stamp up again, Shift Option Command E, and I'm just going to do a couple final adjustments in Camera Raw. I think it just needs a little bit more of a boost of color. I'm going to go back to that calibration slider and add just a little bit more oranges. Yeah, just a touch. That looks good to me. And I think I'm just going to warp my mountain just a touch. This is a really wide angle 14mm shot. So we could get away with just bringing the peak out here just a touch. You kind of want to do this to taste and not really overdo it. So we will go to Puppet Warp and go ahead and do that. Now puppet work is nice. You can just, whatever you want to bring out, I kind of just click here to the top of it, and then these other points that you click will be anchors to the image. So you want to click all around the image and in all the corners to make sure when you do pull the image to warp it that you're not it's not moving the image at all. So I'm just gonna touch this a touch, just a little bit. I think that looks good. It looks a bit more natural like that to me, actually, how it looks. So I'm gonna hit enter. What else can we do to this image? We could add a little bit of brightness to the river. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to hit Command J. I'm going to copy that layer, and I'm going to make a selection, color range. I'm going to select that layer. If I just click on the layer on the river here, you can see the selection it's made out of the white river. Now it looks like we're missing a little bit of the river on the left here. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to bring that brightness. You can see here the white brightness on the luminosity mask. It's selecting more of it. Now we can kind of play with this, the fuzziness, to kind of dial that selection in, because we want to just be selecting the river, but it looks like we're selecting a bunch of other spots of the scene. So we just have to be aware of that. So we're going to hit OK, and then we're going to create a mask. And now with this mask created, we're going to add an adjustment layer to this top layer, and we're going to clip it to that layer. So now whatever we make this in this brightness contrast adjustment layer, it's only going to affect this top layer. But we have to keep in mind, it's only going to affect that top layer, and it's only going to affect the white part of this layer mask. So we just want to add some brightness. So we're adding that brightness, and look at our river. It's brightening that river up just a touch. And we just want to make sure that we're painting out with a black brush at a 100% flow the rest of our image, because we're painting in, we're starting to select more of the image through that color range selection. So I'm just painting back those pixels, so just our river is selected in this selection. So that looks pretty good. Just added a touch of brightness to our river. And we can kind of play with it with a better selection with the brightness. Click here. Yeah, just a little touch more of the brightness. It is selecting those rocks there, so I'm going to go ahead and paint these rocks out of that selection. You can really spend some time doing this. I'm just going to kind of go ahead and do this kind of fast for the tutorial's sake. But I'm just painting the darkness back into these rocks to kind of create some nice separation there of the river, which I think looks good. So I think that looks good. Our river has a little bit more brightness to it, maybe just a touch more. And overall, I think that looks really good. So I think that's it. That's our final image. Photoshop workflow for a fall color shot. I think all of our colors are balanced nice. We have some nice separation between our highlights and our shadows. Our oranges and our blues are working together nicely. And we have some nice color separation here. I think that looks good. If you want, you can save this and crop it for Instagram. I'm going to keep this as a landscape image. And that's it. If you guys are interested in more video tutorials, we have a landscape photography course coming out soon. So stay tuned for that, and be sure to sign up for our email list.